of the regular board of Maricopa County Community College for August 26, 2014. We just had a short executive session a while ago, and we're back in session now. I'd like to start out with a pledge by Mr. Burke.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to introduce the substitutes from CAC, but there isn't any. You're all here. Thank you for coming tonight. Next on the agenda are student life reports. The first one we'll take is our group here from Leadershape and Mrs. Erica Horan. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. President Saar, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, members of the CEC, and guests. My name is Erica Horahan. I'm the coordinator of Student Life and Leadership at Mesa Community College's Red Mountain campus. But tonight I'm here on behalf of the planning committee of the Maricopa Leadership Institute. For the past decade, the offices of Student Life and Leadership from our district have sponsored the Leadership Institute, which is a nationally recognized leadership training program for college students. Leadership focuses on developing leaders committed to leading with integrity. We're proud to be the only community college district in the country that offers this program. We were thrilled this year to be celebrating the milestone of 10 years of leadership within Maricopa. We tied all 10 years together with matching shirts, variety of colors that we've used throughout the year. You'll see that in the photos. It made for very colorful photos of our exciting group. We were honored this year to have been joined by Dr. Glasper and President Saar at our governing board, at our guest leader panel. And we also had President Gonzalez on our board and Dr. Lujan as well. And they were there for a very exciting guest leader panel. It was one of the best ones we had in 10 years worth of leadership. I'd like to show you a brief video slideshow from our 2014 session of leadership, which was held this year for the first time on one of our campuses on the Chandler Gilbert Community College's Williams campus. Following the video, you're going to meet one of our SCC students who is a graduate of leadership, as well as one of our cluster facilitators. And they'll tell you a little bit about their experiences with leadership this year.
Good evening. And it's starting over. It was that good. So you saw that selfie of myself and Dr. Glass. I had the honor of commandeering a few phones throughout the week to get some selfies of me, myself, and some of the colleagues there. My name is Jared Payne. I am a program specialist at Mesa Community College. I work with student life and leadership. I work primarily with clubs, programmings, and events. This past spring, I had the honor to participate in leadership as a cluster facilitator. And it's been an experience that I can only characterize as being the single most transformative experience I had the pleasure of being a part of. It has single-handedly changed the way that I view myself as an individual and as a professional. A little background about myself: I've been in higher education just under 3 years now, and it is not a field that I traditionally started off in. It's something that by happenstance I became a part of. And so I kind of had I was troubled in how I looked at myself in terms of being an educator. I did not consider myself to be an educator, more so just an individual who provided specialized services to populations of students that I dealt with on a regular basis. But having gone through this experience now, I like to believe more confidently that I look at myself as an educator, and the things that I do and the services that I provide to my students go way beyond looking at them as just people that come through the door, take classes, beyond customers. These are young minds and individuals that we deal with and that we work with, and relationships that we cultivate. And whether it's helping them choose classes, whether it's dealing with interpersonal relationships and issues that happen outside of the classroom and family and these things like that, and giving that kind of advice and that mentorship that they can have, and being in an environment where I was able to use all these things that I've been exposed to during my 3 years in higher education in one place to talk about the student condition and the things that they go through. And I think now, having gone through that, I walk more with the insight that I am an educator, and the things that I'm doing, I do so intentionally, and I'm grateful for the experience of having gone through that, and even bringing it back to my campus and having that mentality, that mindset now of to impact even more greatly my students and those that I deal with, as well as my colleagues on a regular basis. And so that's just something I want to talk about, my experience with leadership. Thank you. One of our graduates would speak as well.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Kiana Flores. I am currently studying business at Scottsdale Community College. I attended leadership this coming year, and it was very fun. I like the interaction with all the other students. I myself am an adult returning student, so I was very nervous about joining the institute. There at Leadership, I learned a lot about not only who I was as a person, but my core values. Never have I thought about my core values until I was at Leadership. I learned that integrity, being true to yourself, is very important. Before then, I was very ignorant about being aware of other circumstances around other people and their problems. But at Leadership, meeting all the other students and the different diversities, I became more knowledgeable about other issues out there in the world. Discrimination was also a big thing I learned. I learned that not only myself do I discriminate without even thinking, but others do it as well. And I learned that it hurts people. It hurts people a lot, and nobody likes to be discriminated. The biggest thing I enjoyed about Leadership was the networking with other students. Learning that I was around like-minded people. It wasn't until after Leadership when on Facebook, all my friends, those Leadership friends were the ones who are actually making a difference and doing something different out in the world, besides my regular Facebook friends who I've known for years. So joining Leadership has definitely made me more confident and showing my true colors of who I am as a person. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, how many staff members were involved in putting this together?
We have a planning team of 4 staff members, and then each year we bring on 6 cluster facilitators who are staff members at other colleges throughout the district.
This is my 4th or 5th, lost track of how many I've gone to now, but it's amazing how much work goes into this, and obviously you've seen how the effort is worth it.
Yes,
So thank you very
definitely.
much.
Thank you for your continued
Thanks to all of
support.
you for being here tonight and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
Very important. And of course, thanks to the Chancellor for providing the ice cream
Social.
for the social. And tradition says you've got homework to do. It's now time to go do your homework. Next on the agenda is Martin Cordova, the Associates.
The Mesa students, Mesa Community College students?
Yes,
Is that the-
Associate Students of Mesa Community College. Dual roles here, aren't there?
All right. Good evening, President Saar, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, members of CEC, and all within the Maricopa Community College District. My name is Martin Cordova, and I'm with the Associated Students of Mesa Community College. We are very grateful for this opportunity to present in front of you all tonight. And with me today, I have my executive team, my Vice President, Rukia O'Gara, Vice President of Red Mountain, Crystal Bright, Vice President of Communications, Alexis Bennett, and unfortunately, my Vice President of Fiscal Affairs, Piao Villarreal, could not be here today because she had class right now. So, to begin, we'd like to go over ASMCC's previous accomplishments from last year. We built a strong relationship with the Mesa Legend. We also held a really competitive election that had its highest voter turnout with over 600 ballots submitted. We had a great turnout for our presidential debate. We raised hundreds of dollars for our Emergency Student Scholarship Fund, which kept students in school, and also wrote legislation addressing the tuition increase we just had. We also had a 9/11 memorial event. And then now we'd like to go over this year's goals.
This year, one of ASMCC's goals is to increase our presence on campus. We plan on doing so by hosting events such as Lunch with Leaders, which is an event where a student can meet with us, their student leaders, and voice their concerns. We also plan on continuing our campaign to increase our social media presence. We plan on increasing our Facebook likes by 400, as well as our Instagram followers by 200. We also plan on building a stronger relationship with our faculty members. During our campaign, Martin and I realized that faculty members were more than willing to allow us 2 minutes of their time in their classrooms to talk about the upcoming elections. Therefore, we know they'd be more than willing to allow us 2 more minutes of their time to inform students about ASMCC. Thank you.
Last year, the student government decided to have a representative at Red Mountain, which is where my position came available. This year, as an e-board, we decided that we needed more representatives at Red Mountain campus, and we opened up another position, which is the Secretary of Involvement. With 2 new positions, we hope that this will better build a connection between the Southern Dobson campus and the Red Mountain campus. In addition to that, we are working on creating a space at Red Mountain where students feel welcomed to come in and get information about their student government.
We plan on providing students with educationally and service-driven events such as ASMCC Serves, which is a great opportunity for students to give back to MCC. We also have our Emergency Student Scholarship Fund, Scholarship Day, where we give students information about scholarships available to them. We also have Got an Issue, Grab a Tissue. This is a way for students to voice their concerns. And lastly, we give unbiased information about state and local elections.
Finally, we believe that these 3 goals will contribute to student success and impact their experience at Mesa Community College. Again, we'd like to thank you all for this opportunity and your continual support throughout this school year. If you all have any questions for us, we'd love to answer them right now.
Thanks, Martin. Any questions, Kevin? And just to thank you for taking the effort, making the effort to get elected and to run. And I'm glad to see the numbers growing dramatically in those that participate, because that's what makes it valuable to the campus as well as to the 4 of you and others in your cabinet. So congratulations. Look forward to having a chance to visit you on campus someday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Under awards and recognitions, Dr. Kovala has a award for the Society for College and University Planning.
President Sarr, may I approach the podium?
You sure may.
President Sarr, members of the board, members of CEC, and honored guests, it's my privilege to present to you a national award won by Glendale Community College from the Society for College and University Planning. And in order to do that, I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Alka Arora Singh, who is our Dean of Strategy, Planning, and Accountability at Glendale Community College, who was instrumental in doing the work and then helping us win the award. Where are you? Will you hold this, please? So as you know, this is a national organization. We entered the process that we use for strategic planning to receive the award for the Institutional Integration and Innovation Award. The award recognizes and honors achievements by higher education institutions that have demonstrated innovative thinking, planning, and implementation in an integrated fashion. It honors the tools, processes, and other initiatives that increase collaboration, coordination, and synergies across the institution. Glendale Community College Integrated Strategic Planning Model represents a significant shift in the way we used to do planning. Rather than focusing exclusively on the production of a plan, the college now seeks to vertically integrate planning at the departmental, divisional, and college levels, and to horizontally integrate planning and resources with assessment across the organization. This disruptive innovation allows for the college to remain true to its mission, ensure the allocation of resources to its strategic planning that champions student success. Our representative to receive the award was Dr. Ilder Betancourt, who is a psychology professor. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us tonight. He also made a presentation at the SCUP conference, which was held in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in July. But the award is here, and I want you to know that we're in good company. So we're the first community college ever to receive the award. The other awardees are places like The Ohio State University, the Connecticut Board of Trustees, and so on. So to win this award is no small thing. I think we're in good company. So I present this to you with the greatest honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. That's an awesome award. We congratulate all those involved, obviously, and keep up the good work. Thank you. Moving on to citizens interim, we have nobody that wanted to speak tonight, so we'll move right into the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval of the order of the agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the order of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? It is approved.
We have a question.
What happened to the email?
The marriages?
They're not. We're still going to vote on it.
Okay. Thanks.
I just have a question. So we're not going to get to see anything about them?
They're going to talk next time.
But they're going to come.
That's right. All right, we're on the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull anything from the agenda tonight, besides me? I'd like to pull action item number 8.4, the consideration of separations, just for discussion, please.
Second.
Hearing none, do I hear a motion to accept the balance of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Do we not vote on that motion first?
We
No.
just pull, and then we discuss it.
We don't vote to pull?
No. Are you seconding the motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. The item I pulled is consideration of separations. My question is, we got those today, and I noticed a great number of resignations, and my question to our HR staff is whether or not that's unique, and my concern is that we got those because we weren't able to meet the compensation that others are offering our staff. So I'm just asking you to kind of bring us up to date on that if you could.
Sure. President Sarr, members of the board, we did look at the separations that were listed. There were about 39 separations listed. And out of them, we did find just 2 that had cited compensation as reasons for the separation, leaving for more compensation. Others really span the gamut of reasons. One of the things we'll be doing going forward is more proactively collecting exit information so that we can determine why it is people are leaving. Also so that we can start to look at kind of how it increases or decreases over time in terms of turnover. So that's not data that we collect or produce right now. So going forward, we'll be able to look at that and just get a better sense or better insight in terms of how our workforce is moving and changing. So for now, though, however, in terms of your question, out of those 39, just a couple of them actually left for compensation-related reasons.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I still am concerned, though, because, I mean, what is our percentage of resignation? What's our turnover rate? What's the percentage of our turnover rate?
Well, that's one of the areas that we're challenged in right now with regards to data, not knowing what our turnover. There's very little data that we have that we produce in terms of the workforce, including turnover. We don't have retirement projections. We don't have the exit survey data. So no, we don't have insight into what our turnover percentage is.
Okay, but I understand that we don't have data. I don't understand, Billy, but I'm like, what? When you say those things, that's shocking. But turnover, I mean, we know that's not necessarily a program. We know what our turnover rate is. I mean, we know how many we lose each year. That's just a solid set number of how many people we have leave, right?
Well, we'd have to calculate that. It's your number of departing employees, and there's a figure that you use to calculate based on what your overall number of employees.
Right. So those are set numbers that we don't necessarily need a program to do. We can do that with pen and paper.
We haven't been doing that. That's a good question, and one that I've asked several times in terms of the time that I've been here.
Thank God for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we'll be looking at lots. And turnover, as you know, is just one data point.
Right, right.
In isolation, it doesn't give you much insight, but it gives you enough insight to look at other aspects, other data points, and then taken in totality, it gives you a much better sense of what's going on.
And in some points, it can't even be a dangerous point.
Sure.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 8.4, consideration of separation?
I so move.
Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further comment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the non-consent agenda. We have 11.1 is the approval of proposed changes to policy 4.4 board planning and agenda preparation. This is the second read. We've had discussion on this in the past. We're moving the biggest issue. We're moving up the budget discussion a little bit to get a head start on it. We're also moving up into February, basically, the discussion regarding tuition, so that colleges and incoming students will know what the new tuition is far in advance of the first registrations. And you've looked at these in the past. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the change.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion. Chancellor, do you want to make any comment on this?
Well, based on the conversation we had at agenda review, I believe moving the item up on tuition allows us to give the students an opportunity to know what the changes might be, and we can do our system changes and other approaches. And this was a good conversation around the whole board planning activities. And I think as we move forward, especially with the development of the committees, we can refine our calendar, and we can do a better job of responding on a timely basis.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 11.2, approval of authorization of expenditures for legal fees concerning litigation. Dr. Glasper.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I will ask General Counsel if he would address this item. Mr. Collins?
Mr. Sauer, members of the board, this item represents the budget needed to cover expenses for legal fees and costs associated with the litigation over the next 4 months until the end of the year. This period of time, we anticipate that we will continue the massive effort to preserve and prepare ourselves to retrieve records in anticipation of discovery needs. We will also need to defend the new case that has been filed, and we will be proceeding under the court's case management order with the initial case.
Okay. Just for the public's knowledge, we hold 2 meetings a month. This is the second one. In the first meeting, we have an opportunity for board members to ask questions of staff and to have some time for staff to provide us with answers. So this item, as well as all items, have been discussed as well with all board members. We have a motion to approve the authorization of expenditures for legal fees.
I move approval.
Motions are made and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion-
Abstain.
One abstention. I vote aye, so it's three votes in favor, 1 abstention, and the motion passes. Next item is 12.1, approval of a partial contract award for the remodeling of the Allied Health and Dental Program building on 7th Avenue for Phoenix College. Mrs. Thompson?
Mr. President, members of the board, this building is a building that the district purchased in 2012, and it is being used for allied health and dental programs. Design has been completed and some initial site work has been done. This is a request to continue with that work and then advance into construction, and it is one of our bond program projects.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second? Motions are made and seconded. You're on.
Yes, sorry. Just for clarification, this is a part of the bond project, but yet the building is where?
Mr. President, Mrs. Pearson, members of the board, the building is around the Phoenix campus at 3144 North 7th Avenue.
I understand the address. I see the address, but and I thought I understood this from reading that. But then when you said that it's part of our bond program, I thought this was a building we just built. I mean, just not that long ago, God.
Yes, 2 years ago. We're in the...
But when you said it's part of our bond program, we haven't done a bond since we bought this building. Am I confused?
Mr. President, Mrs. Pearson, and members of the board, in our bond program, in our ballot, we were very general about the projects. We didn't specifically say we will add, a science classroom building or we will purchase this particular parcel. We talked about categories of spending, so new construction for the development of classrooms, support space, technology, occupational equipment. So there is flexibility in the projects we have, even though obviously the referendum occurred in 2004 and we issued the last series of bonds in 2013.
So the building was purchased with the 2004 bond funds as well as the remodel of that facility. Any additional comments? Not all those in favor of the motion to approve the partial contract award for the remodeling of the Allied Health and Dental Program for Phoenix College, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is 12.2, the approval of an agreement with World Education Group doing business as American University Pathway Program. Ms. Thompson.
Mr. President and members of the board, this is an agreement that Rio Salado is working with the World Education Group, and Dr. Bustamante has some comments he wanted to make at the request of some of the board members.
Thank you. Mr. Saar, members of the board, we're asking you to approve this proposed agreement with the World Education Group this evening. Rio would be the first community college partner in the United States in a new program which will allow students in other countries to begin their U.S. college coursework online and in their own communities. In the first year, we're AUPP, which is the American University Pathway Program, which is also a unit of the World Education Group, would assist students in its international facilities to help students be successful in their coursework. It will help with providing mentors, technology, equipment, facilities, and prepare students to continue their education in the U.S. at several choices of American colleges or universities participating with AUPP following this first year of online coursework with Rio. We understand that there were some questions from the board about the legitimacy and reputation of the World Education Group. We did some checking and found that they have an excellent reputation with the American International Recruitment Council, or the AIRC, which they are certified by. And our folks at the college have talked with the leadership at the AIRC, and they have no record of complaints or problems, and they only had great things to say about World Education Group. The AIRC is sanctioned by the United States Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission to establish certification standards for the kind of work the World Education Group does. And the World Education Group meets the standards of certification and will soon undergo another certification review very soon. The AIRC was established as a result of the federal law relating to Standards Development Organization Advancement Act of 2004. So we're confident that the World Education Group will be a great partner for Rio as we innovate in this new international arena, again being the first community college in the U.S. to participate. There is minimal risk, we feel, to Rio since the partnership contract calls for a 120-day notice of cancellation for both parties, and no monies will be exchanged up front for the partnership between Rio and the World Education Group. The World Education Group will recruit and market to prospective students, and Rio will provide the instructional and support services and courses that we provide to any online student that we currently serve in all of our programs online. So their students would be integrated into our general course sections, so there would be no need for special cohort arrangements. So Dr. Jennifer McGrath, who's our Vice President for Academic Affairs at Rio Salado College, as well as Mr. Todd Simmons, who's our Vice President for Business Services, are prepared to provide you with a brief presentation at this time on the proposed partnership with the World Education Group beyond what I've provided so far, if that is your desired. So we would yield to the chair for direction on how you would like to proceed from here relative to that. And we'd be happy to answer your question.
Okay, let's, before we have discussion, we have a motion?
Well, no. Do you think we need a motion?
Up to you.
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motions are made and seconded. Comments?
The certification, how often is it done? Oh, sorry. How often is certification conducted?
I believe they're going to be up for something beyond 5 years. So initially it was 3 years, but now I understand that it's beyond 5 years that they get their recertification.
When they get the certification, recertification, it'll be for 5 years. But right now they're being reevaluated after a 3-year certification?
I think it was a smaller amount of time initially, and I can have...
Will that be part of the presentation? Should we just wait till
Sure.
the presentation so that we can
If
have
you'd
our
like that
questions answered?
presentation, absolutely.
Mr. Burke?
Is the certification provided by AIRC?
Yes, it
Okay.
is, which is sanctioned by the U.S. Department of Justice.
How do you
and the
feel
Federal
about
Trade Commission.
Mr. Chairman, what I heard sounds well-researched. I'm not sure, I need more information.
We had discussion on this, obviously, a couple of weeks ago. Anybody
I would feel more confident if we could have this presentation, and I appreciate the work that's gone into putting it together for us.
Good. Bring it on.
President Saar, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, members of the CEC, and guests. My name is Jennifer McGrath, and I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Rio Salado College. And I also have Todd Simmons,
Hello.
Vice President of Administrative Services at Rio Salado College. Let me go ahead and pull up the presentation. So World Education Group was founded in 2007 from a former U.S. university president. They partner with 70 accredited U.S. colleges and universities, and has been mentioned, they're certified by the American International Recruitment Council. A little bit of background on the AIRC then, because I understand that that's part of the questions that were posed. The World Education Group was actually invited to be one of 9 agencies worldwide to pilot the AIRC certification process back in 2009. And they went through this pilot phase. The initial certification was for 3 years. Then they were recertified for 5 years, and now they're going through the process of recertifying for an additional 10. With that certification, however, it goes, they have an annual report due. So even though their certification might not happen until another 10 years, they do an annual report to maintain their status. To become certified, any group going through the AIRC has to pass a background check, prepare a self-study based on the certification standards, pass an external review and call for public comments, pass a review of all records and a vote by an independent certification board comprised of U.S. institutional members and educational professionals, and be approved by the AIRC board. The AIRC standards, the certification standards include organizational effectiveness, integrity of recruitment process, student and family engagement pre- and post-enrollment, institutional engagement pre- and post-recruitment, and they must also maintain and adhere to a formal complaints process. So I actually spoke with the lead at AIRC yesterday and asked questions about the World Education Group. And she indicated that they've been a model institution. They've never received any complaints or concerns, and they do have that formal complaints process. If one were to come up, she would have known about it. So they had rave reviews from them. In addition, AIRC has 223 institutional memberships and 65 certified agency memberships. All 3 Arizona State universities are institutional members of the AIRC. And so they also provide that annual report, and they're continuously, it's like a mini self-study, like an accreditation that they have to go through. So AUPP is a unit of the World Education Group, and they're undergoing development and local market testing since 2001. And basically what this is students, as Dr. Bustamante mentioned, who would like to come to the United States to earn a United States degree, but want to kind of get a head start and work at home with support in their home country for that first year online. So they're basically going to be taking the general education courses that they will be able to transfer into their university degree. At their home institution, they will then have a service center that AUPP provides with mentors to keep them on track, the facilities, the computers, everything. So they're actually, they're not content experts, but people to say, hey, did you do your homework? I understand that you are, you're doing well in English, but you might need some assistance with math. Have you contacted Rio Smart Thinking Tutors? Have you, so they're going to keep them on track. So they may spend a year or more at the AUPP Center in their home country, and then they can earn 30 credits or more that will transfer to most colleges and universities. And I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. So the AUPP Center is hosted and operated by ESL schools and other accredited learning institutions, and it offers that school environment, access to the computers, the technology. They also want to really build that community of learners in their institution, so the students that are taking classes might not all be in the same class, it's not a cohort, but they're building community, they're reaching their educational goals in that manner together. So the mentor acts as a success coach and guide, not as an instructor, works with students face-to-face to help them stay on track, works in cooperation with Rio Salado and our advisory and counseling personnel, And every AUPP mentor has completed a mentor training course developed by World Education Group. And will also help the students with a weekly study plan and will monitor progress. They're actually planning on the mentor creating weekly progress report for these students to help keep them on track.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am?
So they won't be using Maricopa's tracking program at all? Because we track our students and send them little notes and stuff telling them when they're falling behind.
Oh,
but
anything that we do, we will.
Academically?
Yes, this is above and beyond anything that we do. There will be Rio Salado students, there will be Maricopa students. For all intents and purposes, they're just also getting this extra support on site in their country.
Okay, so help me make sure I've got this right. We're basically providing the educational materials and teachers and system for an organization that works with students in other foreign countries. So they're basically going to then pay us to do this?
They will be charged the tuition, the out-of-state tuition.
That's it, but not we, will not be, the we group, World Education Group, they won't be paying for our.
No, the students pay.
So
students
just
pay.
normal student tuition is all we'll be making from this.
I'll let Todd, we have a slide showing out the financials, so
Okay.
I'll quick go to that. The services that are provided, I kind of did an overview already. It's the next slide. So it's,
Sorry.
That's okay. That's the international students will go to the World Education Group. They send them they can go directly to a U.S. college or university without doing that first year online. If they're ready to move and go, then they go ahead and do that. Or they can spend that year with Rio online and then move to the second year, either continue online with us, or if they're ready to move, we've already talked about how they can come and enroll at any of the other Maricopa colleges once they've moved here. If they do move because of restrictions on the type of visa they would have to have 6 credits per semester in person. So they would likely be in partnership with the other colleges as well if they chose to go that pathway. And I will let Todd talk about the financial arrangements.
This is a brief slide that shows the financial arrangements. The international student actually works directly with World Education Group. They have 3 components, of which Rio Salado is one. The World Education Group provides global program development, management, marketing, local training, and this is the fee that they retain. The in-country partners are the ones that operate the centers and provide a lot of the support to the students. The mentors, and they also do local marketing. This is the amount of money that they keep from the student. And then Rio Salado College, we have this set up similar to other arrangements that we have with corporations here locally, our educational service partnerships. But the money is collected by World Education Group and paid to Rio Salado as a third-party billing, which we do every day. So what they pay to, what have I got here? Okay. What they pay to Rio Salado College is the $15 registration fee per semester, plus any course fees that might be applicable. And then there's a netting of our $215 credit, out-of-state credit, out-of-state tuition, and $105 service fee that we net against our tuition for them to do all of the outreach, the marketing, the recruiting of students, and the support that they provide in the foreign country. And so we net $110 per credit hour in tuition of the out-of-state tuition. Does that answer your question, Ms. Pearson?
So we will be paid $110 per credit hour.
Net, yes. We still charge the $215 tuition, but then we compensate
I
them
understand.
through a netting of the tuition.
So we're paying them to advertise their business, they
are doing outreach, and they are locating the students and bringing the students to us.
I understand
would
that.
not-
I
we would
understand
not
that
have
way
those
of looking at it, but my way of looking at it is, they have a business, they're getting paid through the We Group, $80. They then have in-country partners, which could also be, for all we know, people who work for them. This, I don't know. I see that they could be making some really good money at this, at what they're doing. what is, so basically what we're gaining is $110 per credit hour.
And the registration fee and course fees.
Correct. Okay, an out-of-state tuition fee is what?
$215.
$250.
15.
an hour.
$215 a credit hour.
Yeah.
Online.
Okay. Does anyone else see the problem I'm having with this at all?
There's an expense. The benefit of the program is that there is an agency in countries around the world that recruits students. Those students take 30 hours or more. They come to the United States to finish their degrees. Yeah, we don't have that ability
Access.
here to do that.
Right, the access is.
The access is what we're paying.
And I might say that universities across the country, Mr. Saar, members of the board, have similar arrangements, right, where they partner with agencies across the globe relative to doing this same kind of work. So this isn't unusual in higher education.
Well, I'm not saying this is unusual, but I'm not also going to think that it's appropriate that we can't question it.
Oh, no, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
okay, thanks. I appreciate that. But the bottom line is that I think this is a good gig for them. Okay, it might be good for us, but, you know, out-of-state tuition, okay, here's a good question, good direction to go. How much out-of-state marketing do we do to get our out-of-state students that we currently get, that we get the whole $215? Did we pay, seriously, $100 per credit hour for that marketing per out-of-state student that we get? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're paying them a lot more than we pay for getting out-of-state students. And does ASU, U of A, and NAU, they're all, you said also partner with this, correct?
They're members of the AIRC.
But they don't do this?
No.
Oh, we're the only ones, that's right. You said that. Okay.
But,
All right.
Mr. Saar, Ms. Pearson, if I might say that we do have costs associated with recruiting or marketing for students out of state that we would include in that cost of 215 credit hours. So
But are you
those
saying it's
costs are-
$100 or $100 per credit hour?
No, it's definitely not $100 per credit hour, but what I'm indicating is that any services that we provide in addition to the marketing, and as a matter of fact, we really need to do more marketing out of state and spend more money telling our story so that we can recruit more students into our college, but that costs more money. So all I'm saying is that there are other costs that are built in, but you're correct. When you bring a partner in, there are others that need to be paid for the services that they're providing for the partnership. For example, we don't give the additional high-touch services that this organization is going to provide for students in their home countries. We can only give them what is online, but to have what they're providing in person in their home countries is another opportunity for them to have more success in their coursework and in their pursuit of a degree program that we would all love to have relative to having additional services that we normally can't provide.
So what you're saying is you're justifying the $100 per credit hour because of the high-touch
Yeah.
relationship.
And the recruitment and the marketing. All of
Again,
that.
we do a really good job of recruitment and, well, okay, no, we don't do a really good out-of-state recruitment. I'll take that back. But,
Yeah. I see this as part of our ends, global engagement.
True.
We are providing education to students in other countries that don't have community colleges for the most part. We're giving those students an opportunity to get an education. Their country benefits from this. Many of those students will come here to go to school. I see this as a really good program that meets one of our ends.
Mr. Stern?
Yes.
The issues that I raised at our last discussion had to do with the reputation of a number of organizations that are involved in recruitment and their scandalous behavior. Many of them are scams. Many of them promise a permanent immigration status that isn't available. And so I was very concerned about this particular group. I've had the opportunity to look into it. I think you guys have done an extraordinary job of doing that. So at least I'm satisfied that this is a legitimate organization with which we are going to align ourselves with. So thank you.
And to that point, Mr. Chairman, I agree. I want to thank everybody for the amount of research, and I want to thank you for that presentation, because it does help me and give me some comfort. But I would hope that in the future that there is a recognition of maybe an opportunity to renegotiate this or evaluate as to whether or not if we can increase and do better, especially with Rio, at our out-of-state marketing, and do it cheaper than $100 per credit hour per student.
Yes,
That's my point. And so I will support this for hope that there's something improved in the future.
Mr. Saar, members of the board, I want to just reinforce what Mr. Burke stated in terms of this being one of the board goals, but also the due diligence that the college has done, and it's been recognized by Mr. Gutierrez and others. This is an opportunity for us to, what I would describe as develop a pipeline for, with an established organization that if the students find their experience with Rio one that they would like to expand on and transition to the U.S. and come to our colleges and then maybe to the university, then we can increase our international student base. We can increase our revenue base, and we can do it within what I would describe as a safe environment. Many of our community colleges around the country are involved in headhunters and other organizations and that have taken their resources. So I ask the board to support this because it's like putting our toe in the water and seeing how far it can go. And if we're the first, then it really gives us an opportunity. And what's the term that Rio uses? A blue ocean.
Yes.
This is a blue ocean for Rio, and I would support that we look at this one and manage it. My only question to Dr. Bustamante and his administrators is, what happens within the first 5 years if we find that this is not an arrangement we would like to be in? Is there any kind of exit clause or penalty or?
Or if they don't get recertified, or if there's issues or things that are brought up with their recertification, what about reporting that back to us?
Mr. Saar, Chancellor Glasper, there is a clause in the contract, and we always include a clause in the contract for a 120-day notice of cancellation for either party for any reason that we choose relative to exiting the partnership.
Do you think that 120 days is reasonable for, say, for instance, if they don't pass their certification, or if there's issues that are raised in their certification that then gives us that exit?
I believe that it does. Todd, would you like to comment?
President Bustamante, the contract is set up with 120 days because we realize that many times we may make a decision to get out of a contract in the middle of the semester. And so this 120 days allows us to say, we do not want to continue, and now we have to teach out the students that are currently in classes until they complete. So the 120 days to me is adequate and sufficient.
You know, my question is totally different. What about the languages? I mean, you're talking countries that don't speak English as their first language. How do we deal with it?
Sure, these, their target market is actually students that score high enough on the TOEFL and the English proficiency exams that will not be an issue. They actually have a higher TOEFL score requirement than we do, of 63 on the internet based, and we require 61. They are targeting students that have the means and the motivation to come to the States and succeed at an American university.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the agreement with World Education Group doing business as their American University Pathway Program. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks to all of you involved.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 13.1, the approval of the Chancellor's Contract of Employment for 2014 through 2017.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
On this contract, one of the things that I know that we're trying to be conservative with the 1% increase, but as we near time, as we grow closer and closer to the time that Dr. Clasper might be tempted to resign or retire was the word I actually meant, retire, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble if we don't do better than 1%. We are going to be hurting ourselves, and we're fooling ourselves if we don't start paying attention to what the market is. And I think that we are doing a really bad job of watching that market. And when it comes time to having to replace or to come up with a new chancellor, we might need to pass a bond issue to just to catch ourselves up. No, you laugh, but I'm serious. We need to be more, well, to some degree, we need to be a little bit more proactive in evaluating where we are. And while I appreciate that Dr. Glasper has been willing to basically volunteer as a chancellor in a lot of ways and take the pay that he's been willing to take and support, and because of his support and passion for this district, this is a large district with a lot of responsibility, and we put a lot of responsibility on this chancellor nationally as a national player in the national field. And what he's done and where he's taken this district from, did we have 5 colleges when you came on board, or when you took this position, or?
No, we had 7.
7?
7. And
oh, well, then you're not as impressive as me. Okay, so he took us from 7 to 10. Well, anyway, so the bottom line is, I just feel very strongly. And as I leave, this is my last chance. Dr. Glasper, I hope you can vouch for this, because Randolph's not here, and he'd be the only other person that's been here the whole time that I have. But as I leave this district, or I leave this position, I wanted to remind everybody that every year I make this comment, and I state that we've got to do a better job. And that we've got to look at the job that the chancellor is doing, and we've got to do a better job at compensating him, and we've got to do a better job at being at market. We can't continue to take advantage of this. Be responsible. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the Chancellor's Contract of Employment through 2017, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the monitoring reports. 14.1, the Budget Analysis Report for Fund 1. Ms. Thompson.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is the budget analysis report that we provide to you on a monthly basis, and it is for the first month of this fiscal year, fiscal 14-15. As you know, the report compares actual activity in terms of revenues and expenditures to the budget, and it also shows some prior year comparisons. In terms of the month of July, we have 5.2% of total expenditures recognized, which is similar to prior years, and we have about 20.5% of revenues recognized year to date, which is also similar. We will expect our biggest revenue collection to occur in October and November when the first round of property taxes comes in, and we expect to meet our financial stability requirement for the year.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? And then we'll move on to the next item, which is Governing Board reports. Mr. Burke.
I have no report.
Mr. Gutierrez.
I have no report.
Mrs. Pearson.
I have no report.
And I have just a couple of reports. I've let board members know that their ID card for membership on the board entitles them to free admission to all athletic events.
Oop, oop.
So
What was that?
I don't call that a perk, but it sure is nice to be able to go to that without having to worry about an excuse.
How about the plays? How about the musicals? How about
They're also, in most cases,
I want the,
we can work on it.
okay.
All right, that's, and I've visited a number of campuses and convocations in the last few weeks and listened to some great speeches from both our staff and people that were brought in. I appreciate the efforts that our administration makes to welcome back our faculty and staff to each of the campuses. And as they all say, we're looking forward to an excellent year in this 2014-2015 school year. So best of luck to all of you.
Mr.
Yes.
I did have something. I know.
We wanted to get out of here.
Okay. All right. So, I wanted to make a comment about the court decision.
Yes.
I think that
Although we are going to probably get that later on in the agenda.
Are you going to talk about it?
No.
Dawn will.
Okay. All right. Then I'll let Dawn talk about it because that's the best person to talk about it anyway. But I also, I do want to express that I am really proud of all the work that all the colleges have done. The increase in enrollment, and especially when we got the report about Pima College, I felt really good. You guys did a really good job. We got an increase in enrollment. That is just incredibly impressive. And I just want to thank everybody for the job that they do and the exciting new year. I think it's going to be a good one. So thank you.
Dr. Glasper.
Mr. Sarr, members of the board, I'll make this very brief, but I want to echo the sentiment of the start of the year. There is so much energy that goes on around this district when faculty and students come back, and you see our students tonight from Leadership and from Mesa. There's some outstanding efforts that's going on out there, and I really applaud the presidents for being real in terms of their comments to their faculty and staff. These are some changing times for us, and as we start looking at the change in our legislature and our executive offices in the state and in our board now, so we have to be flexible in what we do. But I just wanted to reiterate again, just the energy from the different groups, the adjunct faculty, I mean, the full-time faculty, and just the eagerness to get in front of a class and have the support that I think that our board and our district provides our faculty and students. And I want us to take it up a few more notches as we start looking at the challenges that we're going to encounter. And I want to thank the board for supporting my contract, and I just ask you to save your money for whoever follows.
What?
Keep that in mind.
Save it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chancellor. Next on the agenda is the Faculty Executive Council, Mr. Hefner.
I don't have a report. President Sarr, members of the board, CEC, and guests, I simply want to wish us all, my colleagues in all the employee groups, and our presidents and administration a successful fall semester. We look forward to working in partnership to make this a better community college system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, from Scottsdale Community College, Dr. Gaylor, the Arizona Mathematics Project NCF grant presentation.
Thank you, President Sarr. With permission, may I invite Dr. Daniel Kaur, our Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs, to introduce our guest.
Absolutely. No.
Good evening. President Sarr, members of the board, Dr. Glasper, and CEC. As we know, many of our students struggle with mathematics, and we also know that the struggle both of attitude and challenge with mathematics often starts in the middle school. It was about this time, 2+ years ago, that Dr. Strom announced an $8.7 million NSF grant to work with middle school teachers in multiple districts utilizing multiple colleges within the Maricopa system. It was described as a very ambitious project, and 2 years into the project, we thought we would have Dr. Strom back to give you an update on its results. And I will tell you, as having a front row seat watching Dr. Strom and her remarkable team work their magic. What they've accomplished in 2.5 short years is nothing short of remarkable. So with that said, I would like to introduce Dr. April Strom to speak to you.
Okay, good evening to the board and chancellor, members of the CEC, and our guests. Thank you for allowing me just an opportunity to give you a bit of an update about the Arizona Mathematics Partnership Project, which, as Dr. Kors said, has been in the works for about 2.5 years now. So just to remind you a little bit about who we are and what we do, we are namely a partnership grant under NSF, the National Science Foundation, as a math and science partnership. The Math and Science Partnership program under NSF no longer exists. We're one of the last ones to get funded under their current RFP. We're a 5-year project, over $8.7 million funded, 2.5 years into it, so we're a little bit more than halfway spent. The good news is that ahead of our annual report that's due at the end of this year, and about 6 months ahead of that, we were forward funded our next year's money. So next month, you'll actually have an opportunity to vote on our next year's budget. Scottsdale Community College is the lead partner, but we also have 4 community colleges that are also on board. In the beginning, we had just planned to work with Chandler Gilbert Community College and Glendale, in addition, of course, to our faculty at Scottsdale, but here in the last year or so, there's been faculty at Phoenix College, as well as Mesa, that have come forward to participate in various ways. So we're excited to expand from our initial plan of 3 colleges to 5 colleges in our district. We also have, most importantly, 7 school districts that are on board in this project, and you can kind of see in the Phoenix metropolitan area where we're all located. So about 6 months into the project, we had an unofficial site visit from our friends at NSF. And after about the half-day visit, our main program officer said this comment to me, that this project already feels like an MSP, what an MSP should be, like a true partnership. So we're quite excited that we're already elevated to that status of having developed a partnership early on. In fact, Ms. Bergen had even mentioned to us that she felt we were more of a partnership at that time than many of the projects were able to accomplish after 5 years or more of their project running. To give you an idea of our cohort timeline, we have a staggered cohort start of teachers. Right now we're in year 3, which means we're working with teachers from cohort 2 and cohort 3, as well as teachers, a small group of teachers from our cohort 1 in a leadership academy that they work directly with me. The teachers in cohort 2 and 3 have started the project and are working on these content workshops with us. Give you an idea of what we do with the teachers. When they come to us, they have a 2-year commitment to our project. In the 2 years, they spend each of those years, 100 hours in each of those years, developing their knowledge of mathematics. So this is not your traditional run-of-the-mill professional development. This is more content-based, things that our school districts don't often provide to our teachers. Our teachers commit to a week summer institute in June every year that they're with us. 4 Saturday workshops throughout the year. In fact, our next Saturday workshop's coming up in September. And then they also participate in the academic year with something called the CCOLs, Collaborative Community of Learners. It's our project's version of a PLC. In the 3rd year, those teachers that apply and are accepted into the Leadership Academy go through this additional 3rd year of developing them as instructional leaders. So not necessarily administrative leaders, but those leaders in the classroom. And so we do things like make them aware of the research in math education. They also conduct an action research project throughout the school year. So I have a little bit of a video to kind of give you a better idea about our project. In this video, you will see some of our faculty who are facilitators talk about our focus in this particular AMP project, and you'll also hear from some of our teachers.
But the one thing that makes the Common Core different than anything in the past is
the 8 standards for mathematical practices. This fact that from K-12, we're going to develop in kids things like problem-solving abilities and to persevere in problem-solving, to make viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others, to engage in reasoning. Those kinds of things are really what separates the Common Core from any other past effort to improve our schools.
It's wonderful to work with the teachers and see the shift and to see them go from you know, the mathematics they're used to, what they were brought up with, what they saw, you know, maybe even what they saw going through the university was the ways of doing, and the mathematics emphasis on the ways of doing. And the teachers now come to us and they're open. They're open to want to figure out how to become better.
And what changes a teacher's belief system is personal, first-hand experience. And that's the beautiful thing about AMP, is that the teachers go through the first summer week in a student-centered classroom. The teachers, all the facilitators, model the strategies that we use to create a positive atmosphere, a culture in the room where people feel safe, that they can share their ideas. They know the ideas will be critiqued, but as a person, they'll be respected.
I love AMP. I mean, of course, I was a very spirited first-year teacher and very excited about it all, but it was so nice to have the drive and the help us as teachers to persevere and really understand how the students struggle and how to help them. And the community, like I said, building a community of teachers, I mean, this is our first year we're actually sharing resources with other junior highs.
It just makes you a better teacher, and it just gives you different ideas and different ways of looking at things. And I think if I had been taught this way when I was younger, I think math would have been a completely different experience.
But just, I mean, what we learned in the Saturday workshops and the summer workshops completely changed the way that I think about teaching, and especially teaching math.
We hear that a lot actually from our teachers, is that this project has been a profound change in their teaching and their beliefs about teaching mathematics in general. I'd like to share with you just a few numbers about AMP. So over the last couple of years, the 2.5 years we've been in, we've had 220 teachers who are either participated already and are done or are currently with us. We have 13 teachers in the Leadership Academy, 30 middle schools that are on board, 26 site-based CCOLs. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, these collaborative communities of learners are based at each school, and a project faculty member goes and facilitates that meeting. But in addition, the mathematics faculty from our colleges actually go in to the classrooms, observe, provide feedback to the teachers, and that's been a huge plus, I think, on the teacher side, is they often share with us that over the course of their career, they haven't often had that opportunity to have somebody who knows the mathematics come in and provide the feedback to them. And so that's what we do quite a bit. By the way, the cupcakes up here were made by one of our undergraduate students, themed from our AMP project. We're a pretty large project in terms of faculty that are staffed and students that are staffed to do this. So 49 of our college faculty, staff, students, and consultants are currently funded on our project. That's larger than any one of our math departments, full-time math departments in our district. We have one teacher from Scottsdale Unified who is a teacher on assignment, who is working with us. She was a project teacher for the last 2 years, so obviously she knows that part of our AMP project. But now she's working with us in the offices to learn a little bit more about what it's like to facilitate a grant and run that behind the scene. We have 4 doctoral students that are on board, 2 of which are funded by a sub-award from ASU, and 7 undergraduate students. That's, I think, the highlight of my work, is that I get to work on a daily basis with these great students that are pictured here. I'm going to highlight a little some of the findings from Deer Valley Unified School District. In fact, Deer Valley was a district that came on with us right away, and they brought 1 school in. And over the course of the last couple of years, they have added additional schools. So you can kind of see, as the cohort started, how many schools and how many teachers came on board from Deer Valley. Well, it turns out, if we focus on Desert Sky Middle School, who started from the beginning, they had a 12-point increase in their AIMS points this last year. It was the greatest gain in their district. The median growth percentiles for each of the math teachers ranged from 54.5% to 67.5%. They had an increase from a 49th percentile last year to a 57th percentile in the math medium growth percentiles. And lastly, their math proficiency increased 3 percentage points. So in talking with my primary contact from Deer Valley, which is their assistant superintendent, Dr. Gail Galligan, she has constantly reminded me about the success that she sees in her teachers when she goes into the classroom. So the data is often supported by what she sees visually when she is able to visit the classrooms. And she's been such a supporter that she's trying to talk us into what AMP Part 2 is going to look like when this grant is over, and can we go into the high schools, which is actually what we're considering. One thing I want to share with you, and I'll show you a video here in just a second of this, is an AMP summer math camp, an AMP camp, if you will. We didn't actually plan this in the beginning. This was something that sort of was an outcropping of a discussion in Vegas, but we can talk about that later. But we sat in a coffee shop with Dr. Ted Coe that you saw earlier, and Trey Cox from Chandler Gilbert, and we said, you know, we had some funds that were going unused in our budget, and they were meant for a community event with our school districts, but they didn't make requests to use them, couldn't find ways to use these funds. So we decided we would create this AMP camp and offer it for middle school students. And we did this past June. It was for 5 days, 4 nights, overnight math camp at Grand Canyon University. And the great thing about Grand Canyon was that they had obviously the dorms for the kids to stay in for those 4 nights. But they also had things like swimming pool, bowling alley, billiards, open gym time that the kids could do activities in the evening. So they learned math in the day and fun activities in the evening. We hired our AMP teachers that had been working with us for 2 years to run the camp and do all the teaching. So it was kind of a nice full circle experience where our AMP teachers who had been learning from us got to create their own materials and teach it to their own students. And the 102 students that came from us, or came to us, were from all 7 school districts. More than half were female, and more than half actually came from the Florence Unified School District. And Florence is about an hour and 15 minutes from here. Often that particular school district doesn't have access to a meaningful PD or experiences for their students like this. So that's one reason why we made it an overnight camp. I'll share some comments with you that the students provided us at the end of the camp. So of course our focus was on mathematics. So one thing that they learned during camp that was most helpful, they felt that the why is just as important as the how. That's critical. Not just about doing, but understanding what you're doing. Having to explain and give reasoning as to why I got my answer. How to look at math from a different point of view. It's not just about one way of solving a problem. There's multiple ways of solving the problem and getting to the same answer. Not to be discouraged that their first method of solving something doesn't work. They definitely like the robotics portion. I like the last sentence here, which stood out to me. The challenge was always exciting. So here they come to camp, and they wanted to be challenged, and they felt that there was excitement from that. Here's something we don't see very often. I love it too. I love math, and I'm glad they did as well. So I'm going to get lots of mileage out of that statement, because we do not hear that very often at all. And one surprise, actually, even though the staff was quite exhausted at the end of 4 days, the students wanted more time. So they had such a good time. We saw this comment a lot that we should extend the days of camp next time. So I thought that was quite interesting to share. So here's a video. I'll leave you with this video of the students working in the camp.
And we're down. Go, let's hold it. Let's go. I'm trying.
I learned that sometimes it's faster to work backwards than to work forwards.
Staff gave us really challenging problems, and it made us use our brain was really happy when we got the answers right.
Problems because normally at school when we have like a problem, like sometimes it's like hard, but we could just figure it out quick or the teacher will say the answer or whatever. But here, the teachers wouldn't like just tell us the answer. They would like lead us to figuring it out ourselves.
I like all the activities we get to do and the hands-on experience.
I like that you get to learn new experiences and you get to use it in different ways instead of just doing worksheets like at school.
I like robots.
I've always been like, just having the answer was right. They've never asked me like, how did I get it? Like, why did I do this? Stuff like that. So I thought that was cool.
And you know, the camp experience and being in the college dorms, I think that was really fun.
My favorite thing about this whole week was making all these new friends that I've never met before.
I also liked how they didn't just give us the answer right away because I feel like I learned a lot from myself now that I actually took the time to answer the question through my own brain.
Food and the activities, and I thought the math was really cool. We had to solve it.
I like the robotics. I think it's really fun and you get to learn a lot. I like the robots and stuff, and I like all the teachers because it's a really fun class and it's not boring.
I like being with really cool people and they're all smart and they're really funny too and they're fun to be around. It's just a really great environment, so yeah.
So I'll leave you with that. I think we do have plans for offering this camp next summer as well. So thank you very much.
You know, this is middle school. To have a week of middle school kids in any environment is awesome. But you got them engaged in math, and that's really a good effort on your part, and thank you very much for putting this together. Look forward to more in the future.
We talk a lot about articulation with universities, and we have a model articulation program with them. But here's one with K through 12, and this is really good. So I appreciate your working with those schools.
Mm-hmm. What are you doing as far as their statistics or any information as to how this works with Native American students, and are we doing any targeting or focusing to bring this opportunity to our Native American schools as well?
So we are, in fact, one of the 7 school districts that are on board is Salt River Pima, Maricopa, which is near Scottsdale Community College. They've been on board since the beginning. Primarily their elementary teachers have been on board. In particular, they were involved obviously in the summer camp as well. They sent 7 females to the camp. So in terms of the evaluation and collecting of data, we're actually right now in the process of collecting all the Ames data for our 7 districts, comparing and contrasting against other districts that were not in AMP, so we can kind of, determine based on an experimental control group setting if our project is having more of an impact in the AMP teachers' classrooms than perhaps in the non-AMP teachers' classrooms. We have a whole research side that also goes in on a regular basis now, specifically in Scottsdale Unified and a Florence classroom, to videotape class sessions on a regular basis about 2 to 3 times a week. So we can actually get qualitative data as well as the quantitative data to look and see how the teachers are taking what they're learning in the project and enacting it in the classroom.
But what does Florence have to do with working more focused or targeted to Native American students?
So our target for the Native Americans is with Salt River.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any comments or questions? Thank you. Moving on to the external community reports. Mr. Burke, AADGB.
Our new chair, Lloyd Hammonds, will have a telephone discussion with ACCT, and I'll be involved in that next week. And then on the 25th, the AADGB board will meet to talk about forming a General Institute for Student Success.
Excellent. Good. As far as ACCT is concerned, we're moving our headquarters, still going to be in Washington, D.C., but they're moving into a larger facility to enable them not only to accommodate some growth in their staffing, but also to potentially host some of the meetings that they haven't been able to host in their own property back into their own properties. That seems to work pretty well. Last on the agenda is our government relations report from Don Wall. He's got news, I know. And then we also have a handout that you provided to us tonight.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Chancellor, members of CEC, and guests. I have a little presentation here, but I will start out with the news of the day, which of course is the Supreme Court ruling on the at-large seats. They were not descriptive. It's a 2-page entry that basically vacates the lower court's ruling. So we do have, for the general election, 4 individuals who will be running for at-large. We did have 5, but today 1 individual was removed due to signature deficiency. So, like I said, we do have those 4 individuals who will be running.
Who was removed?
Mr. Bartning. Mr. President, Ms. Pearson, Mr. Bartning was removed. So we have Mr. Diaz, Mrs. Livingston, Mr. Heap, and Mr. Tiggs, who remain on the ballot for that large. As you may know, the top 2 vote getters are the victors or the winners of that race. So that's where we are as it relates to that lawsuit. We should hear within a certain period of time the court's justification and defense of the ruling. But certainly they have indicated in time for the recorder to be able to place those names on the general election ballot. Okay. So I have 3 things that I wanted to talk with you tonight about. We'll talk a little bit about our candidate forums that we've scheduled over the course of the next month. As I promised last month, I'm going to give you a little bit of a outlook of the state budget, certainly in the context of where we will be going with our legislative agenda given the state budget outlook. And I'm looking back at the clock because you were very efficient tonight, and results are coming in at 8 o'clock. So I was hoping to give you a little bit, but polls closed at 7, and we've got someone who's watching results. So if we can get something by the time I'm done, I'll give you at least some indications of where we are.
You're going to
with
wrap
some key
this up
races.
real fast.
So I will go on. I'm a little bit confused about this. Oh, there we go. So as I indicated last month when I presented, the Office of Government Relations, in a collaboration with the Center for Civic Participation, has organized candidate forums for our governing board candidates. Starting with District 3, we have 2 events, one at Paradise Valley, one at Phoenix College. I can report to you that all 3 candidates in District 3 have confirmed their attendance at both of these events. Moving on to District 4, we have 2 events, one at Australia Mountain and one at Glendale. I can confirm to you tonight that both candidates have confirmed for that, for both of those events. And I should say, Mr. President, members of the board, all of these candidate forums are going to be held between 6 and 8 p.m. Each evening, so they are nighttime events. District 5, there will be 1 candidate forum on September 17, and I can report to you that only 1 of the 2 candidates has confirmed their attendance and 1 has declined to participate. Moving on to, yes.
I understand these are going to be televised on MCTV following the debate, so the public can see all of those on MCTV.
Mr. President, Mr. Burke, that is correct. We will also be working at the district level along with all of our colleges to do marketing to promote this as a community event. We are certainly focused on bringing as many members of the community to these forums so that they can participate in discussions with their candidates. The forums are very much like the ones that have been held in previous years. The format is more of a audience participation. They will present the questions to each of the candidates, and each candidate will have an opportunity to respond, along with opening and closing remarks. Up until today, I did have an asterisk on this slide about whether or not we would have these forums pending a Supreme Court ruling, but was able to take that out before the hearing. We are in fact going to then have these, since our at-large seats are now active election. And we have confirmed all 4 of the at-large candidates that are currently eligible to attend both of these events. So we will have essentially full participation with the exception of 1 individual at all of these forums. I'm happy to take some questions on this before I move on to the next slide.
Thanks.
So I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the state budget. The last time I was before you, I alluded to where we were heading with the development, our legislative agenda, and certainly for us, our budget request of the state is an integral part of that legislative agenda. I did allude to the fact that both the executive and the legislative budget offices had put out projections that were not very optimistic about where we are from a state budget perspective. I'll begin first with talking about where we are, or how we ended fiscal year 2014. Due to revenue shortfalls, we had our projections for revenue were down $113 million. Now, we ended 14 with a positive balance of about $540 million. However, as you can see, moving into 15, due to the cumulative effect of the 14 shortfall, which resulted in additional 15 lowered base revenue, we are projecting, or the state has projected, that it will be in a deficit position of $50 million. Now, I've asterisked that because that is before the K-12 lawsuit and the potential for the reset of the base level that could happen in fiscal year 2015. Staffers are projecting that shortfall could go as high as $150 to $200 million if, in fact, the legislature acts on resetting the base level for the K-12 formula in 15. Well, that has catastrophic effects for 16, because 16 at this point is realizing the shortfalls in revenue in 14 and 15, carrying that over, and that $480 million reflects pre-K-12 settlement or K-12 funding. So we could see that number rise as much as $300 to $400 million. Now, I will remind you all that the state does have a rainy day fund of approximately $480 million. While they may be able to use part of it for 15, perhaps part of it for 16, there will clearly be a deficit in 16. We are going into the fiscal 16 budget year. So you can imagine that if you're already starting the year with a deficit, the state is probably going to look at creating a baseline budget that reflects entitlement and very little else. Now, over the legislative session, all of the folks who sort of want general fund dollars will have to go improve their metal. Based on this, I think that, quite possibly people will be a little bit more conservative in their requests, given where we are. The legislature has historically, when faced with a deficit situation, done 2 things. Reduce budgets or use debt financing strategies that could provide short-term solutions. Unfortunately, a lot of that debt financing mechanism was utilized in the last recession, and so we're at the point, I think the state is, where they've sort of leveraged all of their facilities, and debt, total debt is about $3 billion, of which they are paying approximately $300 to $400 million of debt service. So there's not a lot of options. Certainly revenue enhancements are part of that mix, but raising taxes is generally something that's very controversial. Further on, I'd like to talk about some additional budget uncertainties. As I mentioned, the K-12 lawsuit. There is an evidentiary hearing next month to talk about the retro payments. The court has already ruled that the legislature must reset the base level to what it would be if they had funded inflation over the last 5 years. That is the immediate cost that I mentioned, but certainly there's over $1 billion of retro payments that are potentially a liability for the state. Everyone pretty much suspects that there will be a settlement agreement because truly if you were to pay everything back, it would be catastrophic for the state budget. It couldn't be managed. I'd like to also note to you that both budget offices are very concerned about the slow revenue growth that is being recorded right now. Next month, we should see some more economic figures, and we suspect that revenue estimates will be decreased because of that slowing revenue growth. A phenomenon that's fairly recent at the legislature is multi-year budgeting, and that was a result of a bill that was passed that requires the state budget to be developed using a 3-year forecast. So as they develop 16, the legislature and the governor's office are required to also look at fiscal year 17 and fiscal year 18, using projections for revenue and expenditure. What has happened in recent years is the farther out you go, the less predictable your budgeting tools are, and so you generally have very unpredictable and volatile ending balances 3 years out. And what the legislature has done, along with the governor, is sort of backed into those numbers. So if 18 looks terrible, they will make adjustments in 16 so that the ending balance in the out years is not negative. That is an artificial cap on spending in the current fiscal year. And then finally, I'd like to note for you that many of the tax cuts that happened in the 2012, 13, 14 years are going to become fully realized in 15, and that is also another stress on revenue projections, is that those tax cuts become fully realized. So, as we develop our legislative agenda, as we look to the next legislative session, certainly after the primaries tonight, that most of the seats will be settled, and there'll be a renewed focus on looking at the state budget, I think, at the legislature. Certainly, a new governor will add a little bit of a uncertainty to what that might look like. But given these numbers, we know that there'll be some very conservative budgeting happening over the course of the next 3 years. Mr. President, members of the board, I'd be happy to answer any questions before maybe Jennifer can come up and give me some results. No? Okay.
Come give us some good news. This was terrible. Thank you.
Don, thank you. It's going to be a difficult year. The K-12 ruling is going to be the biggest effect on budgets for years to come. And whether or not the state decides to increase revenue some other ways is always a potential. But I think we're looking as a community college district at not getting the money maybe we even got last year. Although when you start looking at $350 million of makeup that we have to do, 1.4 million isn't a huge amount. It may not make it into that mix, or it might. It's a matter of how good you are at working
Well,
just kidding. I realize it isn't up to you, but I do think that we as a district need to lobby for those funds that we got for STEM, because they're working, and they'll continue to work at an advanced rate if we get them every year, so that we can take advantage of what we learned this past year with that STEM program and what we will benefit from down the road with combinations of the report we saw today from the middle school as those students move up. That's just going to make us better at what we do when it comes to those STEM programs.
Well, Mr. President, members of the board, let me be clear, though, even though sort of painted a dismal picture, I want to stress to you that as we put together the budget request, I mean, we're certainly required by statute to fully request our formula amounts. But I don't see this as a reason not to be aggressive in terms of making our pitch to the legislature about our value, about our role in economic development and job creation, and certainly as it relates to helping increase the state's revenue projections and economic health. I will tell you that in my experience also, that in times where budgets are a bit unstable, there is great opportunity for rich public policy making. There's opportunities to spend time with folks and talk about things that are important to us, such as developmental education and degree completion and all of the things that, you know, are part of our core mission. So I see this as an opportunity, not as a reason to resign myself to potential defeat. But I think it's important for me to give all of you the context in which we will be operating come January. Like I said, it's not a doomsday perspective. I think there's great opportunity for us to work with our policymakers at the state capitol. Certainly with the new governor, it gives us an opportunity to get involved in new public policy initiatives and certainly start new with the new administration who will see us, I think, for what we are. So before I conclude, I believe that each of you have been given an end of session report. It was ready for the last meeting. We just had to do printing. I wanted to let you know that part of the reason that it was a little delayed is that we tried to really make it a valuable document by adding narrative that described the efforts that we undertook at the legislature in terms of our outreach, to give you a context about where the budget was. And I hope to continue to improve that with future publications, and certainly more publications out of the Office of Government Relations that will give the colleges more information about what we're doing. Jennifer has given me some early results. Oh my goodness. We see that in the governor's race, Mr. Ducey seems to be ahead in the. I'm sorry, Mr. Burke, can you hear me? Okay. In the Secretary of State race, Senator Reagan seems to be ahead. In the state treasurer's race, Mr. Hallman seems to be ahead. In the Attorney General race, Mr. Brovanovich. How many precincts are reporting right now? Those are early ballots.
16 so far.
16, yeah. Oh, you have that up?
16%?
Okay.
No, 16 precincts out of 1,500.
Yes, so we see,
Oh, good Lord.
in the superintendent's race, we see Diane Douglas up with, and that's a little bit of a surprise. In CD7, Mr. Gallego, and CD9, Wendy Rogers. In the County Board of Supervisors, District 5, we see Mr. Gallardo ahead. In some key state races, we see in LD 13, which is a pretty important, we see the two incumbents up. In LD 23, which is Scottsdale, Mr. Sarr, you might be interested, we see Ms. Dugenti and Mr. Lawrence up. And in LD 25, which is also important to us, we see Mr. Olson and Mr. Bowers. And I can...
What do you see in 20?
I beg your pardon?
20?
We see Mr. Boyer and Mr. Kern.
Well, at 16, it really doesn't count.
And in LD 25, which is a hotly contested race in Mesa, we see Mr. Woolsey up. In LD 27, we see Mrs. Miranda up. And in LD 13, we see Don Shooter up. So
In 25, you said who are the two?
Mr. Woolsey and Mr. Heap, and Mr. Woolsey appears to be ahead at this moment.
Mr. who is?
Worsley.
Okay, and then what about the House on 25?
Mr. Olson and Mr. Bowers, former Senators Rusty Bowers and current incumbent Mr. Olson. So we'll find out tomorrow.
It's easy to become depressed about state funding, so I appreciate your being positive about the approach.
Mr. President, Mr. Burke, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
In the Democratic race for superintendent, it's
Mr. Garcia.
by a hair, by less than 4 points.
I must confess to you, Mr. President, members, that is the race that I've been most curious about. To tell you, because it's more pertinent to us, obviously, of all of the state, well, other than governor and attorney general, but that has been a very curious process to watch.
Hey, turn this thing back
Mr. Gutierrez.
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate your numbers on the budget. But let me tell you what they tell me. They tell me that we have, perhaps in the past, not been engaged with the legislature to the degree that we should, and that has to change. I think the lesson that we have to learn, this was when K-12 was cut, it was cut by, we can see, hundreds of millions of dollars. The response wasn't to philosophically agree, but to fight ferociously back and ultimately win the amount that they deserved. When the universities were cut, the Alumni Association and its allies went to war. And yes, they were still cut, but they were cut substantially less than they otherwise would have. And my conclusion, by looking at these numbers, is that we haven't done that. That the administration obviously is limited by any number of reasons from becoming a major advocacy organization, but the faculty isn't. The staff isn't. The students aren't. All of us who care about the community colleges aren't. And the fact of the matter is that unless we do something about it, and unless we fight back and keep fighting back in a ferocious fashion, we can look forward to a time when tuition will be equal to that of the universities if that becomes our only source of income. We can look forward to a time when the taxpayers are going to begin to revolt if that we do every year increase it by 2%. There was an economic model. The economic model no longer works, and it has to be reconsidered. So I appreciate your comments about fighting back. I appreciate your comments about the fact that in crises, one can sit down and cry, or one can find some extraordinary fertile time to build weapons for the future. This is our time to build weapons for the future. So this is our time to fight back, to organize. This is our time to remind the faculty that, it's time to fight. Hey, it's going to be a great time. So let's get going. Thank you.
Spoken like a true politician.
Former.
We have 3 upcoming meetings on September 2, actually. On September 9th, we have agenda review here in the governing board room at 4:30. That same afternoon at 6 o'clock, there'll be a work session right here in the governing board room. And finally, a month from now, September 23rd at 6:30, the regular governing board meeting right here in this very room. I just let you know that the numbers that we got from Don earlier have changed a little bit, so I look forward to spending the rest of the night doing that kind of stuff. This meeting is adjourned.
Like a true junkie.